The end draws near. Jerusalem has just endured a monumental catastrophe, and the entire world is gripped by fear. A truly uncanny phenomenon has appeared in the sky. As I reclined in a park, the clouds gradually began to assume a distinct form. In places rarely visited, a dense fog enveloped the sky, accompanied by a profound mechanical hum. Tonight, an unusual stillness pervades the world, as if history itself has paused to listen. Something has shifted at the very core of time, and its arrival was not silent. Jerusalem, a city laden with prophecy, consecrated by generations of prayers and observed by nations, has once more become the epicenter of events beyond a complete explanation. The waters exhibit peculiar behavior. The air thickens. Nights appear longer than they should. Beneath stones laid millennia ago, the earth feels restless, as if recalling a forgotten memory. These are not mere whispers or symbols hidden in ancient texts. They are unfolding now, overtly, measurably, unsettling scientists and rousing those who are vigilant. If you've sensed an alteration in the world, you are neither imagining it, nor are you alone. Please like this video, comment "I serve God," and subscribe, because what you are about to discover may redefine your understanding of our current epoch. In recent days, disquieting reports have emerged from the regions surrounding Jerusalem, reports that refuse to recede. Rivers and waterways, once pristine, have transformed into a deep crimson hue, a color so intense it disquiets even seasoned observers. Scientists attribute this to iron-rich sediment forced upwards by abnormal subterranean pressure, disturbing hydrological systems from below. Yet, for those who stood by the banks and witnessed the water change before their eyes, this explanation feels insufficient. Water that once mirrored the sky now reflects something far more ominous. Shortly thereafter, aquatic life began to perish. Fish surfaced in alarming numbers, lifeless, slowly carried by currents that once sustained them. What was once a source of renewal became a conduit of decay. The scent along the riverbanks changed. The sounds diminished. Witnesses describe an unnatural hush, as if the land itself had fallen silent. This was not merely ecological disruption. It felt like a rupture in a rhythm that had persisted for generations. In Jerusalem, water is never just water. It has always symbolized purification, provision, and God's sustaining hand. Ancient wells, ritual ablutions, and sacred springs all signify life originating from a divine source. When that same water becomes hostile, the symbolism reverses. What once conferred life now attests to fragility. The shift feels less accidental and more confrontational, compelling observers to confront questions they would rather evade. Scripture recounts a haunting parallel. In Egypt, judgment was not initiated by fire or thunder, but by water. The Nile, Egypt's pride and lifeline, turned to blood, and the fish died. It was not destruction for spectacle, but interruption for awakening. Life was disrupted, so hearts might be scrutinized. This echo is difficult to disregard. As the rivers transformed, pressure did not remain confined to the ground. It ascended. In the ensuing days, an oppressive heat settled over Jerusalem and its environs. Not transient waves, but a suffocating burden that refused to dissipate. The air itself seemed altered. Breathing became deliberate. Stepping outdoors felt torturous within minutes. Even indoors, walls absorbed and radiated the heat, transforming homes into sealed ovens. Hospitals overflowed with cases of dehydration and heat exhaustion. Power grids strained under incessant demand. Blackouts swept through neighborhoods at the most inconvenient times. Daily life fractured. Yet, beyond the physical toll, many sensed something profound. In Scripture, heat frequently symbolizes testing and exposure. It strips away comfort and reveals limitations. Under duress, patience wanes, weaknesses emerge, and illusions of control crumble. This is not fire descending from the sky. It is something slower, heavier, more inescapable. Just as the crimson waters challenge the notion of life as a guarantee, now the very air feels conditional. Breath, once automatic, becomes a stark reminder of dependence. If these occurrences are interconnected, they form an undeniable pattern. Rivers, air, life, and endurance, all under duress in the city observed by nations and faiths alike. Jerusalem does not blare its warning. It presses it, quietly, relentlessly, posing a singular question that grows increasingly unavoidable. When the foundations of daily life begin to resist us, are we listening before the pressure culminates in something far more definitive? If these signs are interrelated, the heat is not isolated, but part of a larger pattern. Remain with us as the narrative unfolds and reveals what lies ahead for Jerusalem. After the rivers lost their clarity, and the heat enveloped the land like an unyielding hand, Jerusalem entered a phase that many now describe as the most disquieting of all. The change did not manifest with alarms or sudden darkness. Instead, the light began to recede slowly, almost courteously, as if gently guiding the city into an inescapable reality. Day after day, a dense cloud cover gathered and refused to disperse. Morning arrived without brilliance. Afternoon resembled twilight. Even at noon, shadows stretched long and thin, as though time itself had elongated with them. Meteorologists point to stalled atmospheric systems, air masses locked in place, trapping clouds above the region. But explanations offer scant solace to those living beneath the grey canopy. The sun feels distant. The natural rhythm of day and night blurs. Streetlights remain illuminated far into the morning. Homes keep lamps glowing long past sunrise. People awaken uncertain whether the day has truly begun, or if night has merely loosened its grip. As the dimness persists, its effect deepens. Anxiety quietly mounts. Fatigue settles in the body and refuses to dissipate. Sleep loses its regularity as the mind struggles to follow cues that no longer exist. Children grow restless without comprehending why. The elderly speak of a heaviness that presses not just on the chest, but on their very thoughts. The city now moves more softly. Conversations shorten. Jerusalem feels subdued, as if even voices instinctively lower beneath the weight of the sky. This is not darkness as an absence of light. It feels active. The clouds do more than obstruct the sun. They seem to descend, enveloping the city in a muted shell. Colours fade. Distances feel altered. Familiar landmarks appear stripped of warmth and definition. People walk slower, as if pushing through something thick, something resistant. Scripture has long treated darkness as more than merely nightfall. It signifies moments when clarity is withdrawn and certainty is tested. Exodus speaks of a darkness so profound it could be felt, an imposed stillness that halted normal life and compelled recognition. It was not chaos, but suspension, a pause heavy enough to confront the heart. Jerusalem's prolonged dimness echoes that ancient description in unsettling ways. It poses an uncomfortable question. Can darkness itself convey a message? When light recedes, distractions lose their potency. When vision is limited, attention turns inward. The city renowned for revelation and illumination now lies beneath a veil that refuses to lift. That is what makes this moment so disturbing. The darkness does not announce itself, it lingers, and in its silence, it leaves people pondering not only when the light will return, but what this absence is intended to reveal. In a city where light has always symbolized hope, guidance, and presence, its withdrawal feels less like weather and more like a warning, quietly pressing down on all who walk beneath the locked sky. This time, the sky over Jerusalem did not simply turn dark. Without warning, violent flashes tore across the heavens, sharp, blinding arcs of light that cleaved the very air. Yet, the rain never materialized. These were dry lightning storms, rare and perilous, illuminating the city in sudden bursts, while leaving the land below untouched and exposed. Each strike felt less like weather and more like an abrupt, deliberate signal, freezing people in place as they gazed skyward. Witnesses reported that the lightning did not pause. Bolts followed one another in rapid succession, transforming night into moments of harsh daylight before plunging it back into darkness. Thunder rumbled, but it sounded distant and hollow, as though echoing from a height far beyond the clouds. Still, the ground remained cracked and parched. Fields, trees, and hillsides lay brittle beneath the flashes, primed to ignite with a single spark. The danger escalated immediately. Fire risks surged across the region as lightning struck dry brush and unseen fuel pockets. Emergency crews mobilized swiftly, knowing that one strike could escalate into an uncontrollable blaze within minutes. Yet, even where no flames appeared, people felt the impact. The air grew sharp and acrid, heavy with ozone released by repeated electrical discharges. Headaches intensified. Breathing became strained, especially for the elderly and those already weakened by the heat. There is something uniquely unsettling about lightning without rain. Typically, lightning is part of a system that restores balance. Energy released alongside water, fire accompanied by cleansing. Here, that balance was absent. Power descended from the sky, but mercy was withheld. The heavens spoke in flashes, yet offered no relief. It felt like a warning without a resolution. Throughout history, lightning has symbolized authority and sudden intervention. It commands attention and tolerates no indifference. In this moment, the lightning over Jerusalem felt less like a natural display and more like an announcement, brief, forceful, and impossible to ignore. With each spectacular display, eyes were drawn skyward, a stark reminder to those below of their inherent smallness, vulnerability, and exposure. A storm of this nature resonates deeply on a spiritual level. A warning devoid of rain creates a palpable tension. It offers no solace, only acute awareness. It injects urgency into the present, eschewing any explanation. Fire descends from above, yet the ground remains parched, as if even restraint itself delivers a message. When the flashes finally recede, and the air still stings the lungs, the fundamental question does not dissipate with the light. Instead, it lingers, a burden weightier than the thunder. If this is merely a preliminary sign, what larger force lies in abeyance? And how fragile is the demarcation between an admonition and its repercussions, when the heavens can ignite without purifying the earth below? If these phenomena are interconnected, the intense heat isn't an isolated incident, but an element of a broader matrix. Stay tuned as this narrative unfolds, revealing what fate awaits Jerusalem. Initially, after the sky fissured with dry lightning, fire without rain, many were convinced the message had been unequivocally conveyed. However, what ensued was more subdued, more peculiar, and in numerous respects, considerably more disquieting. As the luminous flashes receded, a distinct phenomenon began to captivate attention above Jerusalem. The clouds themselves ceased to cohere like ordinary clouds. Throughout the city, observers reported the emergence of formations high above the skyline, incandescent shapes suspended against the increasingly dim sky. These were not ephemeral streaks dispersed by the wind, but rather structured forms that appeared to be layered and intentionally placed. Some extended outwards, as if unfurling. Others ascend vertically, enveloped in a pale luminescence, glowing a brilliant white with subtle traces of gold. Instead of drifting and dissipating, these formations persisted, gradually reconfiguring while maintaining a coherence that felt deliberate. Explanations quickly surfaced. Atmospheric optics, ice crystals refracting light, rare cloud iridescence interacting with residual electrical energy from recent storms. While these theories might account for the luminosity, they struggle to explain the precise timing, the striking symmetry, or the manner in which the forms seem to coalesce rather than disperse. What most perturbed observers was not merely the glow, but an undeniable impression of intentionality. Ordinary clouds attenuate, scatter, and vanish. These, conversely, seemed to collect. Witnesses recounted instances where the light intensified abruptly, then softened again, as if in a rhythmic respiration. Below, life continued its steady rhythm. Traffic flowed, prayers were uttered, daily routines persisted. Yet, above it all, the sky seemed to operate according to an entirely different script. Jerusalem is not a city that regards the sky with indifference. For millennia, celestial manifestations above this sacred locale have carried significance far transcending mere weather patterns. For a multitude of adherents, these images instantaneously evoked scriptural passages where clouds are not mere background scenery, but rather the very vehicles through which divine authority is manifested. In the book of Revelation, clouds are depicted as bearing the heavenly hosts, not aimlessly drifting, but arriving with explicit purpose. Biblical signs are never presented as pure spectacle. They emerge at critical junctures, moments of forewarning, transition, or revelation. Whether one perceives these formations as uncommon atmospheric occurrences or as profound symbolic gestures, their manifestation amidst a confluence of stress, altered waters, intensified heat, prolonged darkness, fire unleashed from the heavens, feels difficult to dismiss as mere happenstance. What imbues these reports with their profound weight is not solely the images themselves, but their impeccable timing. When the sky displays such order and light above a city already under immense pressure, interpretation becomes an unavoidable necessity. Are these formations intended to reassure or to admonish, to steady hearts or to prepare them? The clouds offered no verbal communication. They did not linger long enough to explicate themselves, yet their residual presence left behind a question that adamantly resists resolution. When the heavens begin to organize themselves above Jerusalem, is it simply an optical phenomenon within the clouds, or is it a clear indication that focused attention is required before the subsequent event unfolds? Remain with us as we proceed, for what unfolds next suggests that these signs are no longer exclusively confined to the celestial sphere. At dawn, when Jerusalem should have been awakening, the city instead disappeared. A fog, utterly unlike a gentle morning mist, descended without warning or discernible movement. Dense, oppressive, and unnaturally still, it pressed low against rooftops and streets, obliterating all visibility within minutes. Familiar sounds became distorted and echoed eerily. Minarets, towers, and ancient walls dissolved into a monochromatic grey. The city did not stir. It was enveloped. Then, through the pervasive fog, something materialized. Numerous witnesses described an immense formation suspended above the city. Many could only describe it as a chain, vast, segmented, and rigid in its configuration. It did not emit light, yet it captured the faintest available illumination, reflecting it with a chilling, metallic gleam. The impression was decidedly not organic, not ethereal, not fluid. It possessed structure. It possessed mass. It stretched across the sky as if anchored beyond the visible horizon, discernible only because the fog momentarily thinned. It did not move like clouds or smoke. It did not undulate or dissolve. It simply existed, imposing, silent, immense. And then, as abruptly as it appeared, it vanished. What most unsettled witnesses was its sheer scale. It appeared far too colossal to be an aircraft, too sharply defined to be an optical illusion, and too expansive to conform to any known atmospheric phenomenon. Phones were instinctively raised, but the fog interfered, scattering outlines and fracturing continuity. Captured images at best presented fragments, edges, reflections, partial segments, never the entirety. Moments later, the fog intensified once more, as if the sky itself had drawn a curtain. The fog was not a passive participant in this event. It behaved like a veil, parting just enough to permit a fleeting glimpse, then sealing itself shut again. That peculiar pattern left people profoundly shaken. A clear image might have offered solace. This achieved the exact opposite. The mind was left grasping at fragments, compelled to grapple with meaning rather than certainty. Symbolically, a chain carries no ambiguity. Chains restrict, chains bind. Chains denote authority. They represent the power to limit movement, to hold back immense force, to impose order. To witness such a symbol suspended over Jerusalem, a city replete with covenant, conflict, prophecy, and anticipation, carries an undeniable gravity. In this sacred place, symbols are never devoid of significance. Equally disquieting was the fleeting nature of the structure's revelation. It did not linger. It did not invite detailed scrutiny. It appeared, asserted its presence, and then receded. That brevity felt intentional, as if the moment was not meant to be recorded, but impressed. Not analyzed, but indelibly remembered. Perhaps the most unsettling inversion lies in this. Fog typically conceals reality. It obscures what already exists. In this instance, the fog seemed to achieve the antithesis, momentarily revealing something not meant to remain visible. It suggests that what governs the world is not always absent, merely held in check. Whether interpreted as a rare atmospheric illusion or a symbolic emblem of constraint and judgment, the image of a colossal chain suspended over Jerusalem refuses to fade. It sharpens the question, which grows heavier with each successive sign. If something has been revealed, even for a brief instant, what is about to be restrained? Or what is about to be unleashed upon this city? Not long after the fog dissipated and the spectral image of the chain receded from view, attention shifted from the heavens to the earth beneath Jerusalem. What had been subtly hinted at above now seemed to find an echo below. Reports began to emerge of fissures opening along the Mount of Olives, inching steadily towards the eastern gate. These were not sudden collapses or isolated ruptures, but rather slow, progressively widening separations, discernible lines forming across ancient ground with an unsettling precision. Engineers inspecting the area noted unmistakable indications of stress. The soil displayed subtle displacements. Layers of stone that had remained tightly interlocked for centuries were beginning to separate. Initially, shallow splits appeared, which then deepened, where earth and rock no longer met seamlessly. In a city constructed upon layers of history, any subterranean movement triggers alarm. However, here, the apprehension extended beyond mere infrastructure. This land has borne prophets, pilgrims, kings and conquerors. Its stability has always been taken for granted, its endurance implicitly trusted. Residents dwelling near the affected slopes reported something more ethereal. Faint sounds emanating from beneath their feet. Soft cracks, low groans, subtle vibrations too faint to register as earthquakes, yet persistent enough to disrupt sleep. Walls developed hairline fractures. Paths subtly warped, almost imperceptibly, until the alteration became undeniable. Most disquieting of all was the trajectory of these fissures, aligning along a path long associated with ancient prophecy. The Mount of Olives is never simply a geographical feature. Its topography is intrinsically linked to prophetic texts. Scripture speaks of a day when this very mountain will cleave from east to west for generations. These words have been debated, allegorized, postponed. Yet, when the earth itself begins to exhibit separation along that exact axis, interpretation feels suddenly more weighty. Symbol yields to tangible substance. Notably, there was no singular seismic event to account for this transformation. No violent earthquake, no dramatic rupture. The earth did not fracture instantaneously. It yielded gradually, as if a long-held pressure had begun to find release. This pattern mirrors the preceding signs. Waters were altered without a flood, heat intensified without a firestorm, light diminished without nightfall, lightning struck without rain. Symbols were unveiled without explanation. Each sign escalates tension without offering resolution. What connects these moments is an inherent restraint. The chain appeared, then vanished. The fissures are widening, but the mountain itself has not yet cleaved. Forces are pressing against boundaries that, for now, remain unbroken. This state, suspended between intactness and division, between warning and fulfillment, engenders a profound, pervasive disquiet. The emotional burden on the city is palpable. People tread more cautiously. Conversations quieten whenever the Mount of Olives is mentioned. Eyes linger on the ground, as if anticipating movement. The fundamental question has shifted. The focus has shifted from whether the earth is capable of movement to discerning the reasons behind its initial stirrings and their ultimate destination. Jerusalem has perpetually been a locale where the divine and earthly realms appear disconcertingly close. Now, as the very terrain begins to cleave, the ancient narratives linked to this territory gain renewed emphasis. The fissures do not announce themselves with clamour. They do not require it. They speak softly, posing the question of whether this separation is merely geological or the inaugural sign of a far more profound force straining for release. What commenced as subtle cracks beneath the surface has now escalated into something far more troubling. Accounts from regions surrounding Jerusalem report fires that defy the typical behavior of wildfires. These flames do not consistently originate from sparks above or human activity. In several places, they appear to erupt from beneath, fire forcing its way through soil and rock as if the land itself were expelling what it can no longer contain. In some instances, smoke ascends first through narrow crevices, seeping upward before any flame becomes visible, providing almost no forewarning. Fire crews describe scenarios that resist straightforward explanation. Sections of ground smoulder without any discernible fuel source. Stones retain heat long after flames have been extinguished. In specific areas, fires repeatedly reignite, seemingly fueled by an unseen source below the surface. Experts point to subterranean gases, trapped pressure, and geological instability. However, even these explanations struggle to account for the simultaneous unfolding of events across the city. Fire has never been an impartial force. It devastates, yet it also exposes. It strips away fragility, leaving behind that which can endure. In Jerusalem, a city interwoven with covenants, conflicts, and unresolved history, fire emerging from beneath the ground feels symbolically significant in a way that cannot be dismissed. The earth that once cracked now burns. The ground that once groaned now exhales heat. What was concealed is no longer content to remain hidden. Scripture frequently portrays fire not as disorder, but as a crucible. It reveals foundations. It purifies what is authentic and consumes what is hollow. When fire ascends from below instead of descending from the sky, the imagery becomes even more disquieting. It suggests long-held pressures finally breaching containment, buried causes demanding revelation. As these fires spread, fear is not the sole reaction. Something else emerges. Clarity. When the very ground becomes unstable, distractions lose their potency. Conversations sharpen. Priorities reorder. The illusion of mastery wanes. Fire possesses a way of simplifying reality, reducing it to questions that can no longer be deferred. Collectively, the signs surrounding Jerusalem form a pattern difficult to disregard. Water altered, air made heavy, light withdrawn, fire flashing from the sky. symbols unveiled through fog, earth beginning to divide, and now fire resurging from below. Every element, water, air, light, earth, fire, exhibits signs of stress, as if the natural order itself is under duress. This does not feel like a conclusion. It feels like a threshold, a moment where warnings intensify, yet restraint persists, a pause before resolution. The question confronting the world is no longer merely what is occurring in Jerusalem, but what these signs are compelling humanity to confront within itself. If this analysis resonated with you, please support the channel by liking the video, sharing your insights in the comments, and subscribing for ongoing updates. Thanks for watching, for contemplating, and for staying vigilant during a period when keen judgment is increasingly vital.